This video is sponsored by Artlist.
Hey everyone, Fluffermuff Lens here. So it has already been 2 years since I first received and used the BMPCC6K Pro, so today I wanted to make an overall 2-year review of the camera. And since we're approaching NAB I, I wanted to also share my wishes and things that I would like to see from Blackmagic this year, and of course, I would like to know yours too. As always, before I start, don't forget to subscribe to see more videos like this one, and let's get into it. So the 6K Pro has been my main camera for the past 2 years. I've shot documentaries, travel content, licensing, as well as personal content. And I've used it pretty much every day since I got it. I also use this camera with stills lenses, but also cine primes and cine zooms. So I think I have a pretty good understanding of the camera, from its pros to its limitations, at least for my type of work. So in the first part of the video, I will discuss my overall experience using this camera for the past 2 years, what I think about it. And in the second part, I will focus on NAB and what I would like for Blackmagic to do to improve the 6K Pro, or what camera I would like for them to release. And as always, all the gear mentioned and shown in this video will be listed below. So I've owned and tried a lot of cameras over the past 10 years, and the 6K Pro is the first and only so far where I haven't felt the need to upgrade, and there are a few reasons for that. First of all, the image quality. Blackmagic is known for its color science and its look, and this camera is no different. The images you can get from it are pretty incredible. And on top of that, when the image comes with 6K and the flexibility of B-roll, then it is pretty impressive. The second thing for me is value. Again, in my opinion, when you take the image quality, the codecs, the frame rates, the interface, it's pretty amazing, especially for the price. For $2,500, this camera is nearly impossible to beat. For a freelance filmmaker like myself, or a small agency, even a bigger agency, having this price means that you can actually get a couple or even 3, or if for some reason you decide to take the camera in risky condition or weather, then damaging the camera or the fear of damaging the camera doesn't have the same impact as if you were holding a $10,000 camera. Next is ease of use. Doing a lot of documentary work, the last thing that I want on set, on location, is to lose time, and the 6K Pro has never been an issue. The menus are super simple and the camera is very easy to operate. It not only makes documentary work easier, but also travel and personal content. I love how quick and nimble I can be with this camera while still maintaining a high quality image. Another thing I love about this camera, and I talk about it a lot on the channel, is how complete and good the camera is already as is out of the box. This is something that I hadn't expected when I first received it. I think when it first got announced and when I got it, I was focusing on the features of the camera compared to the regular 6K, so the tiltable screen, the internal lenses, the bigger battery life. But I wasn't really thinking from the point of view of rigging and traveling. The more I filmed with this camera, the more I realized that I was taking less and less gear each time for each shoot and less accessories, to the point that I ended up shooting documentaries and travel content just with a camera and a lens and nothing else. This means that as soon as you get the camera, you can pretty much start shooting anything that you want, and on top of that, it can be in B-roll as well. As an example, for my latest video, Frames of Australia, I actually only use the 6K Pro as is with the 24-105 and a few shots on the 16-35, and I use only one battery per day. So I actually used the same battery every day and I was charging it at night, and that's it. And by the way, thank you so much for the positive feedback on this video. I received so many comments and DMs and I really appreciate it. Being able to carry a 6K RAW camera in your backpack the same way you would carry a DSLR is pretty cool for someone like myself that moves a lot. These factors are the main reasons why the 6K Pro became pretty much my first choice for all my content. That being said, I still use the regular 6K, especially for bigger projects or specific projects like shooting anamorphic, when I need to rig up the camera, because by the time I add an external battery pack, an external monitor, I use my niche R&D filters, then it pretty much negates the pro features of the 6K Pro. Long story short, you know I love this camera, but of course it hasn't been perfect over the past 2 years, so now I want to discuss the things that I'm not too keen on. But before that, here's a quick word about today's sponsor, Artlist. As a freelance filmmaker that shoots a mix of documentaries, branded and travel content, as well as YouTube videos, finding high quality music and SFX is essential, and I need it pretty much every week. For my latest video, for example, Frames of Australia, I wanted to find an ambient track that would complement the footage and not overpower it, especially since I knew that I will also use ambient sound recorded on location, as well as SFX. I typed ambient and cinematic, which is what I do a lot for my work, and I found this track by the David Roy Collective, which I then added to my collection for that specific video. Sometimes I save dozens of tracks for one video, but this time I only had 2, so it was a very quick process. So I picked that particular track for 2 reasons. One is that it really matched the footage that I had and the mood I wanted, and it worked very well with the slow pace of the video. And 2, since it is a pretty linear track, I could duplicate it to extend its length. Artlist is super easy to use no matter what kind of music you're looking for, and you can search in the same way for SFX, which I've done also for this video, especially for the rainy and the cloud shots. They offer different plans depending on if you need music and SFX, footage and templates, or if you need all of it. If you're interested, be sure to check out the link in the description to get an extra 2 months when you subscribe to Artlist for the yearly plan. As I said before, it is an amazing camera, especially for the price, but it does have some limitations and a few quirks. Perception. This is something that can be quite frustrating. In the eyes of someone that doesn't really know about filmmaking gear, the 6K Pro looks very professional, and that's because it is. But in the eyes of a client or an agency or another fellow filmmaker, the 6K Pro is still a very affordable camera that can be used by entry-level filmmakers as well as YouTubers, so it will never have the same reputation or standing as Arri or Red, for example. Personally, I don't really care because I know what I can create with the camera, but it is something to think about. Then there are a few things and quirks about this camera. For example, the internal NDs are very handy, they're great and I use them all the time, but they're obviously not as good quality as my cinema filters from Nisi, for example, so when I've got the time and the space, I will definitely use the Nisi filters if I can. Then the camera also sometimes has a few glitches. For example, I remember a few moments when the camera would keep running even though I turned it off for a few seconds after. The date also never seems to be accurate. After a few days I always have to reset, and I know this camera is meant to be reset each time, like as in you put the value and your slate, but it is quite frustrating sometimes when you record something and a week later you want to get another clip and that clip for some reason is months ahead or before. The body as well, whilst I love it, it's very comfortable and it's very light, I don't think it would survive if you were to drop it on concrete, for example. I think for me these little things remind you of its price and the target as well. The shape also can be an issue, especially for gimbal work or when you need to rig it up a certain way. For me it hasn't really been a problem since I use it handheld as is most of the time. These limitations are not enough for me to be pushed to want or need another camera. That being said, I do have a few wishes and things that I would like to see in future cameras from Blackmagic, whether it ends up being in the pocket line or not. Trying to figure out what would be the next camera from Blackmagic is something that people get real passionate about. Personally, I've been wanting a pro version of the BMPCC4K for a few years now, just to be able to have a smaller and lighter body while still retaining the pro features such as internal NDs and tiltable screen. I think this would make for very good travel, personal content as well as B-cam. Now, it has been nearly 5 years since the BMPCC4K was announced, so I don't really see them doing that, but I still would love from Blackmagic to release a smaller, more pocketable cinema camera. I loved and still love my original pocket camera, and the size was a big part of that. And I would even be fine losing an inch on the screen, for example, going from 5 to 4, if that meant having a smaller camera but as powerful. And to be honest, even if the camera was only shooting 4K and ProRes just to save processing power and size, I would still be interested. For the purpose of this video, I would like to discuss how I would like to see the 6K Pro being improved on. I think there's two main things that could happen. First is that the camera could go to an 8K sensor. I don't really feel the need to go to the extra resolution, but again, it can be helpful. And the other thing would be that if they wanted to go full frame. Again, it's not a necessity for me. I understand that some people might benefit from it, but I really love S35 sensors for now, so I'm fine. Here are a few things that I would personally like to see though. So first, an extra stop of ND. I think ND6 is not enough in certain conditions. Next, I would like a stronger body, even weather sealed for outdoor work, that'd be amazing. No crop for higher frame rates like 4K 120 or even in 6K. And I would like the camera to be a bit less power hungry. Apart from a new modular camera, most of the time I hear people wanting autofocus and IBIS, which are very useful features of course, and as a solo filmmaker, doing a lot of documentary and outdoor work, I would 100% use them. But I personally think that Blackmagic is focusing more on the codecs, the image, the interface at an affordable price for now. There is one other thing that I would love to see from Blackmagic, and there is a camera that sits between the Pocket line and the Ursa 12K. For me, it would be a body that has some of the features of the Ursa 12K, like the new sensor, the higher frame rates, a stronger build, and more professional connections. But one that would also take things from the 6K Pro, like the smaller size, a brighter and bigger screen, ProRes files, and the possibility to run smaller batteries and vlogs. And maybe an 8K sensor with the possibility to shoot 6K ProRes. Something like an Ursa Micro, I guess. So ideally, I would love to see a true pocket-size cinema camera, a new in-between, and the Ursa 12K. Obviously, this includes 2 major changes in the lineup, so I don't think it will happen. I know a modular camera has been requested by so many people, but for me personally, I think that what makes the 6K cameras of the BMPCC line so good is the amount of things that they're packed in terms of features and specs in such a small form factor, and you don't actually need to add a lot of add-ons and extras to actually make them work properly, which keeps the running cost quite low. But that's just me though. Now I want to know, what do you think Blackmagic should do and what would you like to see this year? I think right now the 6K Pro is still the best value camera on the market and the one that I always recommend. Of course, if you shoot a lot of events and weddings, then the Canon C70 or the Sony FX3 will probably be a better choice, but I'm talking in terms of value for the features, usability, codecs, and image quality you get. I've spent 2 years using this camera on varied projects and I could easily spend another 2 and be absolutely fine. That being said, I'm very keen to know what Blackmagic has in store for NAB I or for the rest of the year. That's it for me for today, guys. Hopefully you've enjoyed this video. If you did, please consider subscribing and giving it a like. And again, let me know in the comments what you would like to see from Blackmagic. As always, thanks for watching and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.
Also, feel free to check out my ebook, Freelance Documentary Filmmaking, An Introduction, where you can find a streamlined but comprehensive overview from pre-production all the way to marketing, built on years of my own experience shooting short documentaries around the world. And if you are interested, I'm also doing filmmaking mentoring sessions where you can ask me anything about a wide variety of topics.